Well, first off, let's start off by talking about how did you and Dad meet?
Okay, well, when Dad and I met, I had just gone through a kind of a horrible divorce, and when I needed to find a job that I could support me and Lisa with. So looked at the paper, and there was a job advertised at Apollo Electric for secretary. So I remember going to the Apollo Electric, and the owner there was Berners Troutman. And I told him, I said, listen, I've never been a secretary, but I can type, and I can answer the phone, and I can file, and I can do about anything you want to do. I said, I need this job real bad to support me and my daughter. So he hired me, and I started working there, and Bubby was an electrician there at Apollo Electric. So that is how we met. We met at work, you might say.
So how did you guys meet?
She worked as a secretary at, that was Apollo Electric. And anyhow, I had already, the time we got married, I had quit and gone to work at Hagerman Electric. Yeah, I was working at Hagerman Electric.
Tell us about your first date.
Our first date, I had gotten off from work, and Bubby had called and said, do you want to go play cards with my brother Larry and his wife? And I said, I couldn't find a babysitter for Lisa now, this late, and I said, I don't think I'll go. And he said, well, just bring her with us. And I was a little surprised that he wanted to bring her with us, but I thought, well, okay. So we went and played cards that night. That was our first, I guess at the time I thought we were just friends. I didn't consider that as a date, but if I look back, that probably was our first date.
Now, what was it like coming from a big family and then having a big family of your own?
Well, it was what it was. Just kind of natural, I guess. And I can remember when we could all fit in that old 56 Ford truck. We'd go back and forth in it sometimes, according to what we was doing. Because Dad started their house there at Hartford, or No Creek, after we built this, about a year after or so. So we were back and forth quite a bit. And most of the time we took the old truck because we had tools and stuff on it. We did Larry and I had done several houses together. One of us would do the roughing on the wiring, and then we'd finish up the plumbing, or vice versa, So we got, Dad's a pretty good sized house, a lot of stuff in it. So.
And tell us about how did Dad propose?
Bubby had taken Lisa and I on a vacation to Point Clear. And the drive was long, and I thought, Lord help, we're never going to get there. But we finally did get there, and then met all of his family and stuff. And so we had been there 2 or 3 days, doing different things, with his mom, dad, and his aunts, and that kind of thing. And then, so one night he said, let's go for a walk on the beach. And so we went down, walked on the beach, and that's when he said, I want you and Lisa to be a part of my life forever. And at first I thought, wow, I don't know, but then I realized how sincere he was and how good he'd been to us. So I ended up saying yes, and so that's how he proposed. He proposed on the beach. And
what deal did you do with your dad with Rose that involved $200?
No, he offered Rose $200 to take me, but she had to take all the junk. So she got the junk, but she didn't get the $200. But Dad come down here and did a lot of work on the house and other stuff for us, and fixed it up where we could buy stuff, and because I know he sent a truckload of brick. He had some kind of deal with the brick place in Owensboro, and they sent a semi-load, and there was just a little bit they couldn't get on there, so we took a couple of trucks from the battery plant and went up there and got some stuff,
There was one thing about Bubby. Anywhere we went, we pretty well took Lisa. Because it was just easier. It was easier not to find a babysitter and just go and have fun wherever we went. I guess my memory slipped me. I don't remember a whole lot of things we did, but I just remember that we did, Bubby, he was good to take her with us, and he was happy with that, and she was happy with it. So yes, we went everywhere we went. She went too.
Well, tell us about where did you guys get married?
Okay, we got married at a Methodist church here in Utica, Kentucky. I guess if Bubby knew anything about me before I got married, it was that I was terrified to get married again. And we'd had several conversations about this, and I said, I don't know. And because there's no guarantee when you get married that it's going to last forever. I thought it was the first time, and it didn't. So I really had my doubts this time. And but anyway, we were in the pastor's office going over paperwork. It was like, who's your mother and dad, and all that stuff, making sure all that information was correct, and where you were born, and that kind of stuff. And then the pastor says, we had to pick up the marriage license from the courthouse, and we brought it to the pastor, and he looked over at that marriage license, and he said, well, they didn't sign this. And I thought, okay, that's it. That's a sign from God. So I was getting ready to be a runaway bride real quick. And but Bobby, he gently took my hand, and he said, you are going to be okay. And if it hadn't been for that, I think, I'm not sure I would have got married, but we are okay. Now, 50 years later, we're still doing okay.
How many places have you lived since you got married?
Well, we lived in 1917 Wyandotte. We lived over in the cabin. And let's see, we live here. That's 3. Yeah, I guess that's it.
And where did you guys go for your honeymoon?
We went to his mom's and dad's cabin at Cambridge Shores. It was just a vacation cabin for them, but we used it that weekend. Left Lisa at home. She didn't get to go this time, but we didn't stay but one over the weekend because his parents were watching Lisa, and we needed to get back to take care of her. But it was a nice weekend, and Kentucky Lake's a beautiful place. We drove around and looked at the sights and stuff, and it was a good weekend.
We did a vacation to Smoky Mountains. We had that little Plymouth Scamp, which is a little 2-door car, medium-sized, small car, and we had 8 kids because we had an extra gal with us, Lisa's friend. And Betsy was a baby then. And we went to Smoky Mountains. And I really didn't want to go, but I really enjoyed it once we got going. And anyhow, we went up the mountain, and every time we'd come within little lookout points, we'd stop and rest the car and get out, and look and everything. And it was a pretty good trip for that little car. It was loaded. And we had gone to, one night, me and Rose went over to get some grocery stores, and they had some Indians dancing over there, local Indians, and so I loaded in the car and run back over to get the kids, and we get them, and everybody gets loaded up. We get over there and realized we'd left Betsy in the camper and had to go back and get Betsy. Of course, she was asleep, didn't know nothing about it. In time we got over, the thing was over with. And then another thing that happened to us, they wanted to go around and check out some of the rides and stuff, and they had one thing there, and they wanted $60, $70, some ridiculous price to get that bunch in there. Well, that's our gas money, we can't pay that kind of money for this kind of stuff. We come down here to Smoky Mountain, just go to the mountains, so we abandoned that, and they had a helicopter ride down there. I said, well, you could do that helicopter ride. It was like $20 or something. And Rose said, oh, they got one up there at the dam. They can do that anytime. So anyhow, when we get back, Gary happened to be over here, and we was talking. Matthew said, well, I'm going to ride on that helicopter up there by the dam. And Gary said, no, you're not. Well, why not? He said, well, it crashed. Matthew just looked real silly. He couldn't understand that. It was a big old military one of them, some kind of transport helicopter. Something about it, when they got it up, it didn't have enough fuel, and it sucked air, and then down it come. And I think the guy got messed up a little bit. He didn't get killed, but anyway, they had to haul that thing out of there on a truck.
How was it growing up with a big family? I know you and Dad both came from a big family, and you have a big family.
That probably was one of our biggest blessings that both Bubby and I had, because as the kids come along, like I said, we started out with one set of bunk beds, then we put another set in, and I had a lady come in and she said, "I can't believe you raised all these kids in this little bitty house." And I never thought of my house as little bitty, because I think I grew up when there was 3 in a bed, and Bubby pretty well, he grew up with kids everywhere too. So kids everywhere never bothered us. It came natural to us, and then because we learned from your mom and dad, you learn their values, and that helps you, and it helps you. You knew right from wrong, and you knew how to correct them because your mom and dad corrected you. There was a lot of times that Dad never went on a date with me, but I always felt like his finger was pointing me, and like, is that what I want you to do? And so there was a lot of things that benefit both Bubby and I and Bubby was the oldest brother of the rest of them, so I think a lot of responsibility came on him, and he was 24 when we got married, so he had stayed at home all that time, but he learned to be a big help to his mom and dad, because whenever she had problems with washing machines breaking down or something, like, he just went and bought one, for her and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of ways that it was good for us to both have big families, because it came normal to us, and you learn to do without, not to ask for a lot of stuff, because the money wasn't there when we were children, but never felt like I was poor. I always had sisters and brothers to play with and to ask for advice, and even now when Mom and Dad are gone, it's my brothers and sisters that I turn to when I need somebody to talk to, and I wish I could talk to Mom or Dad, but having a big family is God's blessing. And then, of course, there were times when we fought and argued with each other, but in the end, I still got family I can call on, and that's a blessing I've got,
What advice would you give other couples like Lakin that just got married on how to make it last?
Well, you just have to respect each other, and you learn to live with, because everybody's got little quabbles and different little things like that, so you learn to live with that. And you don't sweat the little stuff. Don't worry about little crap, And you want to keep one thing, you want to keep your finances good, because that probably wrecks more marriages than anything else because of the stress and everything.
Mm-hmm. I know there wasn't a lot of opportunity for a lot of big grand vacations or anything, but I know you guys spent some time in the Smokies for a while. You had the little camper trailer. Can you tell me about do you have any memorable vacation trips with the family?
Well, as you know, when you have that many kids, you can't spend a whole lot of money. But we decided to go. We borrowed his mom and dad's pop-up camper and put it behind a little Plymouth camp. And we had good thing the kids were all skinny then. We didn't have to use car seats, so they were all in that back seat except for I think Betsy was the baby. She was 6 months old, I think. And anyway, she was up front with us, and then may have been one in the middle of the car. Back then, those cars usually had a seat in the front and then a seat in the back, but there wasn't no two-seater stuff. But anyway, all of them were in the back, and if we didn't have enough kids with us, Lisa decided that she was going to have her girlfriend go with us. So we put in another one in that little Plymouth camp in the back, and we had everything loaded down. We were pulling out of the driveway, and we had been in the car maybe 5 minutes, and there was some arguing going on. So Bubby stops the car in the middle of the driveway, and he gets out and he turns the switch. And he comes back and he puts that switch up on the dashboard of the car, and he says, "The next fight I hear, I'm not asking any questions who did it." And he said, "I think this switch will get every one of you." Well, you know what? We had a real peaceful ride all the way, because nobody dared do anything. But we got to the first campground that we was going to go to, and that guy looks in the car and he sees all them kids, and he really thought, oh my gosh, But so he said, well, why don't y'all go way in the back there? He wanted all these kids to be away from the people in the camper. So we set up camp back there, and then Bubby and I were going to go and get some stuff for them to eat on, and so we left the kids in charge of watching the kids till we ran to the grocery store and came back. Well, we got to the grocery store, and there was some Indians doing a dance, and they were in costume and all this stuff, and I said, you know what, I think the kids would really like to see this. I said, why don't you go get them? So he goes and gets them, and I'm doing the shopping, and so when they get back, I got my groceries and everything, I'm ready to sit there and watch these Indians. And then I look around and I said, where's Betsy? She was a baby, so she was sleeping, and she couldn't walk out, so guess what? She got left, so I said, okay, everybody in the car, let's go. So we got back in the car, and we came back, and Betsy was still sleeping in the camper, but you know what? That trip was a good trip. We went up in the mountains, and I've probably never been back to Smokies where I saw such beauty. It was everywhere you went there, and the kids had, there was a pool there at the campground, so the kids were happy with that, and so that was one trip I remember that we all went to.
Do you guys have any funny memories about things like mishaps as far as like leaving kids behind, other than like that kind of story? Do you remember any other? I guess the one that comes to mind is the time whenever it was raining cats and dogs and couldn't find Betsy the time that we were at a basketball game. She stayed home with Dad. Do you remember that story?
Well, that was a case of Dad freaking out. He had called me at the school because I was working concession stand, and one reason I didn't take Betsy is because it was really raining when I left, and I said, why don't I leave her here? Because I said, I'm going to have to bring her in the rain and all this stuff, and I said, why don't I leave you here? And he said, okay. And so anyway, I got get a call there at the concession stand, and he says, you got to come home. I said, what's the matter? And he said, I can't find Betsy. And he said, I think she's, I've had the fire department here looking for her, Uncle Gary's here looking for her, and she's not in this house. And I said, listen, she is in that house because she's scared of storms. I said, there's no way, as the way it's raining like this, she's outside. And he kept saying, I'm telling you, she's not in the house. I said, I'm telling you, she is in the house. But anyway, Wendell was playing basketball, so I had to leave him and go home. But Betsy it was thundering and lightning, and Betsy was scared, so she had lit a candle. And Dad got on her about lighting the candle, telling her she was going to catch the house on fire. And anyway, so when it kept lightning and stuff, back then we had a waterbed that Gary had given to the kids. And them waterbeds have ledges on them. The ledge sticks over. She had crawled up there in the corner of that ledge and gone to sleep because she didn't want to see the lightning and the thunder. But I told him, I said, she's in that house, but he didn't want to believe it. But anyway, she was safe and sound, and it seemed like if anything happened, it's kind of like Josh. Josh was one that would always get hurt, and there's certain kids that if anything's going to happen, it's going to be either one of them, either Josh or Betsy, it seemed like, but in Bubba's defense, I won't say that he's the only one that ever left her either. I had gone to school to pick up the kids, and had a couple of neighbor kids in there too. But anyway, we was all getting in the car to go home, and Josh was missing. He'd got in trouble for something, so he was have to stay after school. So I said, all right, I'm gonna go in there and see where he's at and see whether I'm gonna make another trip out of here. So anyway, I go in there and I collect Josh. So we get in the car and I think I got them all here. And then I'm going home. I got home and everybody's falling out of the car and I said, where's Betsy? They said, oh, she got out. I said, oh. So I had to go back and fetch her again. It seemed like if anybody was going to be, it was her, you know. But anyway, she was meant to be because, you know, God could have took her several times and he didn't until, you know, later on. But she was a joy, so.
How did you get your name Bubby?
That came from Grandma Pose. It's Nellie Pose.
Like what particularly like?
Well, when Dad was in the Navy, I was born, and Grandma and Aunt Ethel, Mom's sister, came up to where we was at, and I think we was up around the Great Lakes. I'm not sure, but anyway, might have been in Chicago. But anyway, they came up and decided to take me back, and they left Suzanne with Mom and them, and then I was with Grandma for however long it was. So she. And you know, I was real small then. And as she come up with Bubby, I don't know, there's some Bubbas and there's a Bubby Lartigue and there are different ones in the family, so.
Now that you guys have been married for a while, what's it like having so many grandkids around?
Grandkids are a jewel that you'll never know how much until you get them. You know, my happiest days is when there's mattresses and sleeping bags all over everywhere, and they were all spending the night, and you know, they would do their own thing and that kind of stuff. There was a lot of chocolate chip pancakes done in the morning, and you know, it was that's some of my biggest joy. And even now, they're, you know, it's a joy to hear them call you and say, "Hey, what are you up to?" And you know, when your kids leave the house, and you know, you go from a very busy household to nobody there, and then when you get a call from a grandkid that says, "Hey, I'm coming to see you," it's worth more than you'll ever know, you know. But it's and even the one that's getting out in California, we're gonna have to go sneak peeks at that child, you know. But the blessings come where they are, and you take one day at a time and enjoy that blessing. So, but yeah, grandkids are. And you know that old saying that what stays at Granny's, what happens at Granny's stays at Granny's. That's true, you know. So, and some of the stuff that maybe the kids wouldn't have got away with, it's not so important that they make sure that the grandkids don't do it, because I just have to love them while they're here, and then I can turn them loose. So it's easier that way. You know, you don't always have to be the one that guides them every minute, but. They're a joy that you'll never understand until you have one. So.
Mr. Hurl, the old man who started the battery plant, he had a plant in Anderson, Indiana. I don't know, back in the 50s, I guess, when he started that thing. And he so-called retired, and then he come down here and decided that he had bought some property and put a sales thing on it for Clyde, what was his name? Anyhow, for another guy. He had a sales thing out front, and then they decided to put that factory up behind there. And the guy that was going to do the maintenance work and stuff, his wife reneged on, she didn't want to move to Kentucky. And I had done some work for Mr. Hurl up there on his farm at Prentice, Kentucky.
Okay.
And he went by to see Dad. And, you know, Rose and I was married at that time, living in Owensboro on Wyandotte Street. He went by to see Dad, and Dad called me, and I went out to the house that night, and we had supper and everything. And I met Mr. Harold down here, and we went and looked at things, and he hired me. And I put my notice in. And we moved over here, and we stayed in the cabin at Cambridge Shores that winter, and started this house right after we got down here. And Ben Fraser and his crew put the shell up, and then we finished it, you know. I think they had the windows and doors and, you know, just a bare house. And we did the plumbing and wiring, and then Larry and I did a lot of the trim work and stuff, and hung the sheetrock and, you know, the ceiling stuff. And it's actually got plastered ceilings in this house because it had the electric heat in the ceiling. So anyhow, we worked on that all winter. And Wendell worked on it too, but he didn't know it
Yeah.
because she was expecting Wendell at the time. And Lisa, where the electric panel is there, we fixed her a little pallet so we had a heater we could plug in. And she'd get tired and lay down on that. And we'd work. And then we'd load her up and go to the cabin, spend the night, and get up the next day and go to work and then do it over again.
Well, Lakin just got married a couple weeks ago, pretty recently, and I'm just curious what kind of advice you'd give to couples that, or even people like me and Laura that have been married for a while. Like, what kind of advice you have to help make it to 50 years or and beyond, like you and Dad have?
Well, Lakin called me one time, and her and Jacob had a spat, and I can't even tell you what the spat was about. But I asked her 2 questions. I said, Lakin, do you trust him to be an honest man? She said, yes. And I said, would you miss him if he walked out of your life? She said, yes. I said, then work it out. I said, if you have a person that's honest with you, you can do a lot with that. Because it's very important that if they tell you that they love you, that they mean it. And I said, you're not going to, life's not always been grand. And I said, Bubby and I, so we've had our times when we could easily knocked each other's block off and been happy about it, but at the end, you begin to count your blessings and realize, see the good in them. And even sometimes when some of the other kids would call, but some problem they'd had with their mate, I'd say, nobody made you marry them. See the good in them and dwell on that instead of, what you're upset about right now. And I said, years later, the adjustment, I said, you're taking 2 people that have never lived together and then putting them together, and there's adjustments everywhere, but sometimes the adjustments develop into something that you're very grateful that you took that journey together.
Do you have any, really memorable moments as you guys went through your 50 years? Like, anything that was just looking back on it strikes you as really funny, or anything that sticks out as something unique over the last 50 years that kind of defines your marriage as it is?
Well, I think Bubby and I started out working together because we built a house together, and I had never Bubby has carpenter skills and plumbing skills and electrical skills, and a lot of that due to his dad, and because he learned a lot of them skills right from him. But I had never picked up a hammer even, but I learned to do a lot of things that I never had learned to do before. But and I had to learn to let him tell me what to do, which I'm not too good in that department, but he needed to tell me what to do because I didn't know what I was doing. But we worked together on this house, and I always said that Wendell helped build it too, because I was about 7-8 months when we were building this house. So Wendell worked and built on this house too, right along with me. But anyway, it seemed like whatever come our way, I could talk to him about anything that was bothering me, and we could talk it out. And I think that's the biggest thing is keep talking, because when you don't talk, you can't figure out what each other's thinking, But he, looking back, we made it, and our house is, it's older house now. It's 50 years plus too, But anyway, it's okay. It's a house that I wouldn't live anywhere else because it's where we grew up together. Bubby and I were both young too, and we grew up with our kids. So.
Being where you're at now, I know both of your families were closer to Owensboro area, Hartford area. Did you ever think about going back to be closer to your family? What was it that brought you to the Kentucky Lake area?
The reason we got down here is Bubby had done some work for Mr. Harold, and when he was in Hartford, and the guy was very impressed about the work that he did for him. So Mr. Harold came to Bubby and he asked him, he said, I want you to come and work at my battery plant. And so Bubby came to me and he said, what do you think about doing this? And I said, the job, I said, it's going to have to be up to you, because I said, you're going to be the one. I said, you've gone from, he typically was, at that time, was more or less working for an electric company. He worked at Lark Electric, and so he was wiring houses and stuff, but I was a little bit concerned that maybe if he went into a factory like the battery place, that maybe he would get bored of it. But I think I didn't even understand what he was going to do, because he got at that battery plant and he was in his element, because he built molds to help with making those batteries, and he was just a maintenance guy. And so that's how we got down here, from a job that offered. And then when I first came down here, I'll have to admit, I didn't like it, because I moved away from my family and my classmates and my friends, and so I didn't like it for a while. But I knew that I had agreed that because he asked me, he said, do you want to go? And I said, well, if you decide to take the job, we'll go. And so I thought, well, I got to give it a chance. And then shortly after Wendell was born, seemed like one right after the other came after that, so I didn't have time to be lonesome. You know, I had kids to take care of, and now that I've been down here this long, I couldn't imagine going off and being away from my kids. This is home, and I hope I can die here in this home. You know, it would be a blessing to me if I stayed here until I died.
Anything you want to tell your future self, or like somebody else later down the road, like any other words of wisdom you'd want to give to somebody else in your situation if they found themselves struggling with their marriage, or struggling with finance, and just a different day-to-day stuff you have as a couple? Any advice you'd want to give?
Oh, that's a toughie, because you know, I don't have all the answers. I tell my kids that all the time. I don't have all the answers, you know, and I don't think even my mom and dad had all the answers, but, you know, but it was always nice to go back and say, hey, Mom, what do you think about this? Or, hey, Dad, what do you think about this? And they were pretty, you know, but I think Mom and Dad, I know Mom and Dad probably fought, but they did not fight in front of me. And I tried to remember that with Bubby. Even when I was very angry at him, I tried not to do it in front of the kids, because I think that shakes their world, you know. But do I have a lot of advice? I don't know about that, because I think a lot of it is day by day. You know, nothing can prepare you for some of the stuff that's going to be thrown your way, you know. And even you know, when Betsy was in her car accident, Lord, that threw me for a loop, and it threw Bubby and I for a loop too. And but you know what? If I ever needed him to step up, he did then. Because when the kids was growing up, Dad was so busy trying to make a living for us that he wasn't often there. So he didn't change a lot of diapers then. But when Betsy came along, he was here a lot. And I saw that man, what he talked to me about. He would come home, I'd come home and he'd say, I hit the jackpot. And by that he'd mean that Betsy had done her business, and he had cleaned it up. So he learned to do stuff with Betsy that only a caring father could do. So do I have any recommendations? That no, just take one day at a time, because you never can be prepared for what's. But stay close to the Lord. I'm telling you, every time I've had a problem and I don't know how to take care of it, get on your knees. And I think that my dad taught me that. If anything, my dad was, he was on his knees in the morning and at night too. And if you were up, you were on your knees with him. And my mom, God bless her soul, was she was right behind him with every bit of wisdom, And I think about her now because our world has changed so much. But I remember having on a one-piece bathing suit and her coming around saying, do you think that's covering enough? And I thought, well, Mom, how much more you want it to cover? But now it would raise her hair for sure. But Mom was a devoted Christian, and so was Dad, and I believe that brought me through a lot because even though Mom died so early that I wish there was oftentimes I wished I could talk to her, but I always knew what she would tell me. If I would want to talk to her, I always knew what she would say. And she gave me brothers and sisters that still help me today. And, that's a joy that you get from being in a big family, And